Hey folks, it's been a good wee bit over a year since The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom released. To this day, it's still debated on how much it lived up to the expectation of fans, and with the next new installment of the Zelda series, Echoes of Wisdom, on the way, I thought now would be a good time to tackle a video idea I've had for a little while now. Was Tears of the Kingdom successful? It's an awesome game, but yeah, I can't not hear about just how many fans aren't particularly pleased with it. Was it worth the years we waited? Were corners cut? And is it just overpriced DLC? No, that last one is a bit dramatic if you ask me, but in today's video I'm going to break down this question and give you my take on if I believe Tears of the Kingdom was successful or not. Be sure to go and grab yourself a delicious snack and drink, folks. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, as it really helps the channel out. And let's get into this one. So let's get one thing straight first and foremost. Tears of the Kingdom did phenomenally in terms of sales. Not only is it already the second best selling Zelda game of all time behind Breath of the Wild, but it also sold over 10 million copies worldwide in its first 3 days, 2.4 million of which were in Japan alone. A new record, by the way. To put that into perspective, selling 10 million in the first 3 days is in the region of copies that Ocarina of Time has sold in its lifetime. There's no question about the success of this game in terms of sales. After all, it was the most anticipated sequel from Nintendo in a very long time, arguably the biggest. As of March this year, the game has sold around 20.61 million copies, so why is there even a question around if this game was a success? Surely it's amazing, right? Well, outside of sales, there is the actual in-game content, and it's there that some questions are asked. Well, what is the most important thing for a Zelda game to do? Have good dungeons? Exciting new mechanics? Well, in my opinion, I'd say that the story is the main thing, and all of those go along with it. So, how was the story? Was it a success? How do we even measure that? Well, it must be said that this is, of course, my opinion, and you don't need to agree with me. I just ask that you respect and consider it. If you ask me, I'd say that Tears of the Kingdom's story was brilliant. The game is a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, and I feel it played that role perfectly. It was connected to the previous game, being set in the same world, many of the same characters returning and whatnot, while still very much being its own contained story with new areas to explore, new characters to meet, and a brand new quest to go on. If anything, I'd rate this game's story better than Breath of the Wild's. It's so epic. Hyrule's deep dark secret, the King of Evil Ganondorf back again, causing chaos in the corners of Hyrule, Zelda gone into the dark abyss below. Link teams up with the Zonai, a group that tons of fans really wanted to see explored more, and the fans got exactly what they wanted, and we get to explore majestic sky islands, brave the depths below, and ultimately come face to face with the reborn King of Evil for a battle of the ages. You cannot tell me that isn't an epic story, and that's just at base value. There are loads of wee bits and pieces throughout that make it even more enjoyable. There's largely improved dungeons from the last game. The story is a banger, and it has a few good twists throughout. Spoiler alert in case you haven't beat the game yet, but Zelda turns herself into a literal dragon. Queen Sonia is murdered by Ganondorf. This is a brilliant story, and I'm only just scratching the surface, and I believe it was successful at what it set out to do. So I ask again, why is there even a question of if this game was a success? Well, let's talk about the problems the game has for many fans. How new did it feel? Tears of the Kingdom was announced as the sequel to Breath of the Wild in 2019. It released in 2023, 6 years between the last major release and itself, 4 years between its announcement and release. Factor in a pandemic right in the middle of that, and it did feel like quite the wait for the game, which is very understandable. I don't think it's fair to have a problem with the time it took to create this game, or any Zelda game for the matter, as I'd rather have a finished game than a rushed one. Nintendo took their time and put their all into it, so why are there some problems? The game didn't feel new enough. That is one of two common problems I hear a lot. The first reason for that is the most obvious. Tears of the Kingdom takes place in the same base world as Breath of the Wild. It's the same Kingdom of Hyrule, but with new locations and modifications. Now, I'm not going to sit here and act like it doesn't bother me at all, because that's not the truth. It was pretty cool at first, re-exploring the world, but after a short amount of time it did get a little bit, not boring, but more so lacking the element of discovery, because I'd already traversed the landscape before, and whilst the new locations and additions are cool, they just aren't enough to make the world feel new, and whilst the story is sensational, it makes it hard to stay as motivated to discover that story when you have to explore through a nearly identical world as the last game. Granted, there are new areas such as the Sky Islands and depths, but the majority of the story takes place on the surface level of Hyrule. And again, there are changes and new things such as caves to explore, but they were just that. This massively affected the story without actually affecting the story itself. It got in the way of how the story was presented. Imagine being given a 5-star restaurant quality meal, but it was served on a half-washed plate, just used for someone else's meal. The food itself is brilliant, just like the story on its own, but the plate it's served on, in this case the world is reused, and doesn't complement the story the way it should. This is of course a bit exaggerated, as there were some really brilliant new additions to the world that brought a whole new aspect of life to the game, and the Sky Island and depths weren't bad, I just felt they could have been more involved in the story. There are of course some major involvements, I just thought there could be more. But as for the positives, the new mechanics for a start were beyond brilliant. The developers really got them spot on. Fuse, Ascend and Recall are smart and cool, but the big one is Ultra Hand. The ability to build. We could create cars, planes, boats, attack robots, or anything we could imagine really. The creations players made with Ultra Hand became a sort of sub-genre of this game alone. This was a very big positive within the reused world. It did help to make things feel more fresh. There were also the new maps such as the Depths and Sky Islands, but admittedly they were fairly empty with exciting contents beyond the initial excitement and adventurous feeling of discovery. The Depths, for example, might have been better if it was half the size but double the contents, but it was still a cool concept. The Sky Islands were also pretty. Very pretty, but not much important goes on up here beyond the opening of the game and a few bits and pieces here and there. Nothing compared to the amount that happens on the surface layer. As for the other common problem, it's the lore. Let me clarify now that the lore in this game doesn't bother me personally, but for others it's just not there. And I don't disagree or feel those that feel that way are wrong or exaggerating. I see exactly what they're talking about. It's just not something that affects the experience for me personally. A big issue for many is the inconsistency with this game's lore. Whilst it expands certain areas, it also leaves a lot of areas unanswered, and at times contradicting already stated Zelda lore. I can understand how this might affect it for some. It's just for me, I feel like this has always been a part of Zelda games. We know the developers don't focus on things like the timeline and intricate lore until after the game itself is done. It's not their main focus, and time again they intentionally leave gaps for us to fill with our imagination, interpretation, and theories. If we had all of the answers and everything just clicked and made sense, then we wouldn't have all of these awesome Zelda theories, mysteries, and lore videos. The series has been like this for years, but it is now suddenly a bigger problem than before? Why? Perhaps that's because the game is bigger, making the problem bigger. I'm not too sure, but I can see why it might bother you. Especially when the lore plays a role in the overall story of the series. It might not affect this story alone, but connecting to the whole series and timeline, yeah, it does bring up some problems. Problems which for me could easily be viewed as mysteries. Why do these things not line up? What are we missing? Not whining about how Nintendo don't care and didn't put any effort into the lore. That's just not the case. So, is Tears of the Kingdom a successful game? Knowing that these problems are present, ultimately, I say yes. Without a shadow of a doubt, this game was a massive success, and I think time will highlight this. I know it's pretty mixed feelings in the moment still, but I think with time, Tears of the Kingdom will become more and more viewed as one of the best Zelda games in the entire series, and the problems that seem so big now will become small problems that don't massively affect the experience. I believe time will show the game more and more at base value, highlighting just how good it is. Take The Wind Waker for example. Not an identical scenario, but that game was largely disliked at first for its art style. But with time, it grew on fans and is now one of the most loved Zelda games. I think we'll have something similar in the next 5 to 10 years. I feel Tears of the Kingdom is a success because it set out to be a direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, a task which requires it to carry over an already existing story and world in Breath of the Wild, but also create its own unique story. It did exactly that, and the story itself was brilliant. It has problems, as most games do, but I don't feel those problems deem the game not successful. It's a sensational success of a game. And if you disagree, which is valid, I'd love to know why you feel it isn't a success. I hear it so much. I hear people saying this game flopped when I just simply disagree with that. I strongly believe that it is a success, and cannot understand saying it isn't. Please, if you disagree, do share your thoughts and feelings as to why down in the comments. This is just what I think. The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom was a success. Thanks a ton for watching. Do you think that Tears of the Kingdom was successful? Let me know all of your thoughts on that question down below in the comments. From the good stuff to the bad, let's get talking about it. If you enjoyed, then be sure to subscribe for more fabulous and amazing Zelda content coming your way. Drop a cheeky wee like down below, and as always, a massive thank you goes to my amazing channel supporters. If you'd like to get your name at the end of my videos, a shout out upon joining, and access to my inside scoop post, then consider becoming a channel supporter through the supporting links down in the description. Also down there are my socials and Discord server if you'd like to keep up to date with me. Thanks again for watching. I hope you have a nice rest of your day or night, and until the next time, I've been Hyrule Gamer.